Right, it is 6:30. So we can go ahead and get started. And if other people try to join, we'll let them in, of course. Does anyone have any questions on any of the topics that we covered either last week or even in the previous week? So in the previous 3 weeks. If you do, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them for you guys. Today, I am going to be doing a fun project for you guys that's going to use a lot of the skills that we learned in the first 3 classes. So, of course, I'll go slow, and feel free to ask me if you want me to revisit something or redo something so you can see it again if you're taking notes. But if you had come prepared with a old black and white photo that you had scanned and wanted to kind of work alongside me, feel free. You can also go grab the photos from the Dropbox. If anyone needs that link, I can drop that in the chat as well. So if you have Photoshop and you want to work alongside me on the exact same photo versus your own personal photo, you can do that too. So I'm going to just jump right in, and we're gonna get going. Okay. Okay. So here is the black and white photo that we're going to colorize. And let me move this. All right. To give you guys some reference for what it looked like, I did find a photo that just, it was originally in color, and it was something that felt maybe like it was sort of reminiscent of, older times, so that when I made it black and white, it kind of feels old, like what you might find in an old album of a family member or something like that. Okay. So the really important thing to remember today as we work on colorizing this photo is that we are going to be using a lot of layers. And so the thing that I want everyone to remember is to frequently save their work. It's the first thing. And the second thing is to name their layers. And you'll see why that becomes important as we go. It becomes really confusing when you have so many layers in a Photoshop document. So right now, this is currently a .jpg, a JPEG. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file, and you can just choose wherever you want to save it. Okay. So I'm going to just name it Recolor 1. All right. And now I do have the original to show you, but in most instances, if you're colorizing a photo from scratch, you are not going to have the original to look at. And for that reason, I don't want to jump back and forth between these, because the fun thing about colorizing a photo is that you get to use your imagination. You don't really know what colors the details of her dress were back in the day, because it's a black and white photograph, or maybe just really faded. Maybe it's really faded. So that is going to be the nice thing about this, is you're going to get to use your imagination. Okay, so pretty much this entire project is going to be done using adjustments, the adjustment layer. So I'm going to pull that out so that I can have that and my layers panel side by side as I'm working. All right, there we go. And so for the first layer, I'm going to colorize her skin. So I'm going to click on this hue and saturation adjustment icon here, and it's going to pull up something that looks like that. Okay. And what we're going to do this is we're going to click this box that says colorize. And you'll notice that it automatically colorizes the entire photo. So right now we know we're focusing on her skin. So we kind of want to just take this little slider here under hue, and you maybe just want to try to find a shade that looks sort of realistic. You can reduce the saturation. You can have the saturation be really high. Somewhere like maybe right in here feels, you know, like that could be natural. This also is, you know, the lightness versus darkness. So kind of just play with it until it feels right. I think maybe something like right about here. And you'll notice as you slide these, even just like an increment of 1 can really make a huge impact, and you really notice it. Okay. So we're going to go back to our layers panel because we don't want this color to apply to the entire work, right? And so you'll notice that whenever you have an adjustment layer, it automatically generates a mask for you. And you may remember from last week that masks, let me move my images up here. I want to pull up the chat and make sure nobody's asking me any questions. Okay, there we go. So you may remember from last week that the mask icon here, which is this little white rectangle, is how we eliminated the background from the woman before we put her on that background of the lake and the trees with those sort of castles in the background. So masking will basically only allow artwork to show through in the area in which you want it to. And as long as your mask is selected, and the way that you know your mask is selected is if it has these little corners around it. And then, you know, conversely, like if I were to click on this icon here, you'll see that those corners switch to be around this icon. So, but we want to select the mask because what we want to do is we want to apply the this adjustment layer to colorize her skin only to the areas that are her skin. And the thing that I find easiest to do is to kind of work backwards. So we know that black and white are the colors that we use. So I'm going to use the paint bucket tool here. And I'm going to eliminate it because black removes color and then the white puts the color back when you're working in a mask. So, okay. And now we're going to go and we're going to use our paintbrush tool. We're going to kind of zoom in on her. But first I want to put the color back in the general areas in which I know the color needs to be applied. So I'm using the white color and my paintbrush tool with a hard edge, if you can see that. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to also apply it to her arms. All right. Great. And now sometimes, especially when you're working in black and white like this, it can be tricky to know where you've applied the mask. So a little trick that I like to do when I'm working with masks is if you tap it's like a little backslash icon on your keyboard. It's underneath the delete key on mine. If you have a different keyboard, it might be located somewhere else, or if it's a PC, it might not be the same shortcut, but on a Mac, it is the little backslash icon underneath the delete button. And that will highlight the areas in which I've removed the color so that I can see where I'm working, because like I said, it can be kind of hard when you're working with black and white and such, you know, muted colors, if you will. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go in and I'm going to apply it only to her face. And the easiest way to do that is to just kind of get as close as you can without, you know, going over her skin. And then I zoom in really close. I make my brush smaller. And if you hold down the shift key as you go, so if you hold the shift key down and you click in this area, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm going to click again, you'll notice that it draws a straight line. That sometimes works, but her face is curved there. So sometimes you actually have to kind of go in and actually like draw it in. And a lot of people might do this a little differently than I do. They might actually use like a pen tool to create masks. And all these different ways, but I find that when you're doing something like this, the problem is there's so many areas that are soft. And by soft, I mean, if you look around her hairline, for example, you have to fade that in. So what I would do here is I would bring the hardness down. So I have a really soft brush, and then I would remove the color that way. You have such hard and soft areas where you really want to blend color that, to me, I've never really thought doing something like this or certain types of retouching. It's never made a lot of sense to me to do it any other way than really meticulously by hand, which is kind of, a pain, but it's worth it when you see the end result. So here I am again with my hard brush. I changed it because I'm back near her forehead. And it helps if you have a really steady hand, but if you go too far over her forehead, you can just switch back to the white paint color, and you can go in there and remove it. So if you are new at this or really don't have a steady hand, no big deal. And then you can just kind of eliminate that area. So, this can definitely get, like I said, pretty meticulous, and you can spend a lot of time on it. Ooh, you see there's her neck. So whoopsies. All right. I'm going to just kind of do a rough job here for you guys today so that I can go quicker, so that we can have more for you guys to reference, versus me being a total perfectionist about it, which is really hard for me because I am a total perfectionist, but it's okay. So here we go. And actually, we don't need this area. Right. And sometimes when you have these like really tight areas, you have to make your brush really small to get into these tight areas. All right. So for the people who came just a little bit ago, we are creating adjustment layers and using masks to recolorize a photo. I'm currently working in one adjustment layer to recolorize her skin, and I will go back over that step, how I got here, in a bit when I do my next layer. Okay. So if you are confused where we are, I guess I would just focus on the process for now. And then you'll see, I'll pick back up where I left off for you guys in just a minute or two. All right. So we're getting really close to being done with her here. And you'll notice, oh, didn't do a great job with her ear there. Whoops. Okay. And sometimes people find that they really benefit from using a tablet of some sort to do, really extensive projects like this that are have a lot of detail. I have a Wacom tablet that I really like. So if this is something that you're really interested in and you really want to continue to pursue it, maybe a tablet's for you. The benefit to that is a pen tool that a lot of times the pen tool is also sensitive to pressure, which is really nice. I'm just working off of the trackpad on my MacBook right here. So I don't even have my mouse out right now. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the opacity here and just take out a little bit of that color, just like right here where her hair is. Okay, so we're in mask preview mode. I'm gonna turn that off and you guys can see what that looks like on her face. I'm gonna go in and do just like a really quick job of her arms for you guys. And I'm gonna try to be quick so that we can get to the next layer because, whoops, wrong color. Because I feel like this project could really take a while if I wanted it to. It's something you can really spend a long time on. And when people do spend a lot of time on, colorizing a photo of, a relative or something, it's always really cool. And you can really see the work that somebody put into it. So again, I'm going so quickly because I'm just clicking from one area to the next by holding down the shift key. And that basically draws a straight line between the areas which I'm clicking. And okay, so here's her fingers here on this book. So I need to put back some color there. All right. And this is like a little bit of a softer edge here with the book. So I'm just going to kind of go in right like this. Okay. And like I said, not perfect. So that really hard brush again. Okay, we're getting there. One hand is almost done. And now if I were being really meticulous about this, I would go in very carefully because that area where her hand overlaps over her dress area is hard to see because in black and white, they're very close to the same tone. So, and that I think was part of the dress after all. Okay, so there's one arm. And you see this little preview mode of the mask is really helpful because I see that, these areas here, I need to go ahead and mask those out. All right, next arm. You see there's just like a slight curve there. Okay, and so honestly, the arms are, I think it's a kind of important thing to show you guys working with like large areas, but we're gonna, for the rest of this tutorial, focus on smaller areas just because I think that can really add a lot to the composition. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this a little softer right here. Just undid that. All right. We are well on our way. So you'll notice that I switch between these colors a lot. There is a keyboard shortcut to do that without actually going over and clicking on it, but I want you guys to see when I switch between them, so I'm not going to use that keyboard shortcut today. All right. Almost done. There we go. Just have to do the sleeve. Okay, so this is the area that we've masked out, and that's what it looks like now. So we'll go ahead and maybe let's do, oh, you know what? I did miss something. Her eyes should not be skin colored. So let's get rid of that. All right. So this is just one layer. I'm gonna go ahead and title this skin. Just like I was telling you guys, it's really important to keep track of your layers. So let's colorize her eyes next. I don't really remember what color her eyes were, but maybe let's make them a really interesting green. That looks pretty. So when we go back to the layers panel, I'm gonna put this back because it's in my way. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna totally get rid of it, right? And then we're gonna go in with the white and our paintbrush tool, and I can add in her eyes in just the area that I know her irises are in the photo. Okay. And I went a little bit overboard here in the corner. So as you're doing it, you'll say to yourself, okay, that green is pretty, but it's a little bit crazy. She looks a little bit like an alien or something maybe. So then you go back into that adjustment layer. And the way you do that, by the way, is by double clicking the adjustment layer icon here, and it just pulls it right up. And you can kind of reduce the saturation maybe, or change the lightness or the darkness of it. And that will help you get a more realistic effect. So next, again, we want to title this irises. Now we're going to, let's do her lips. Why not, right? Oh, by the way, I know I just breezed through that when I did her eyes, but the way that we colorize something is by, I'm gonna just undo it. We're here in the layers panel. If you go to adjustments here, it's going to pull up this tab. I said I'd revisit this for those who came late. So hue and saturation is really the only adjustment layer that we're going to be working in for today. So click that and then click colorize, and then you can see, you know, what color it is that you want to work with. And so we're going to choose a pink for her lips. And I'm going to just make it, I'm going to make it really subtle. Let's see. It looks good. Maybe somewhere around here. I mean, we'll figure it out. I can go in and adjust it later. I'm going to use my paint bucket tool in my mask to completely mask it out so that I can then take my paintbrush and go ahead and add color in only where I want it. And since if you look at her lips, the line around her lips is really soft. So what we want to do is reduce the hardness of our brush, and then you can go in and you can paint in some color on her lips. Okay. And that's definitely maybe a little bit more purple now that I'm looking at it than I was thinking. So we're going to go in and maybe we'll adjust that a little bit. Okay, and we can also use this layer maybe to add a little bit of color to her cheeks. I don't want as much pigment though for her cheeks, so I'm going to reduce the opacity here to maybe like 30%. I'm going to reduce the hardness of my brush so it's completely soft to 0. You just go in and you can add some pink to her cheeks, right? Maybe a little bit here to the bridge of her nose, where you would normally get sun-kissed. And we're gonna go in and maybe I will just make it a little more, see what it looks like if I go all the way over here. I think I kind of liked it better over here. Okay, so that was really a subtle layer. We're gonna name this one lips and cheeks, okay? And I think that that already has started to make her look more realistic. So maybe the next one we do to, you know, kind of wrap this up a little bit, because I see that we are going short on time. And if there are no questions, I can keep going for a little bit longer today. That's no problem for me. I have time. But, you know, if I just start to drone on, let me know, or, you know, you can just drop off. But anyways, here, I'm going to go back to my adjustment layer. I'm going to hit colorize. I think her hair maybe should be, I don't know, a brown color. So I'm going to find the right shade. Let's see what looks like a light brown. And then I'm going to adjust the darkness of it. And Let's see, reduce the saturation. All right. We'll see how that looks. I'm going to, like I said, get rid of the entire layer or all of the color by masking it out. And I'm going to go back in and add it only where I want it using the paintbrush tool. So let's first see. Oh, it's only on 30% opacity. You want to bring that up all the way there. Okay. So this isn't super realistic, but we're gonna see what we can do. So around her face, you know, we have that really soft area of her hairline. So my brush is still really soft, but maybe I'll bring it up a little bit, maybe like to 20%. And you're just gonna kind of go in and add the color. And you'll notice that it starts to overlap where her skin was. You know, that is going to create some layering that helps it look realistic. Okay, this is a really soft area. I'll bring it all the way down here. All right, and now right here where her scarf covers her hair, that's a really hard line. You can see that really hard line right there. I'm going to go in with a really hard brush. So I've brought my hardness all the way up to 100. And here I go. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at where I am masking things out. Whoops, wrong one. Because I want to look and make sure. Right there was still red. Okay. Went over her ear a little bit. We don't want to do that. But this area here behind her ear is her hair. So. All right. So I'm going to just go in really rough, and we're not going to focus on things like the baby hairs or anything like that because I want to get to more things. So just use your imagination and pretend I'm doing this perfectly. All right. So if we zoom out, I think that looks pretty realistic. It looks pretty good so far. I mean, like I said, some of these little hairs here, you could really zoom in super close and you could do like individual hairs if you wanted, but just for the sake of time, so we can get to something else here, I'm not going to do that today. Something really easy we could do is we could add green to the background, and that's really going to make her face and her hair pop. So I'm going to first name this hair, and then let's go in and let's choose a nice green for that background. So in the hue and saturation, I'm going to hit colorize. I'm going to drag it over to green. I'm going to reduce the saturation so it's maybe a little more subtle. Go back into my layers panel. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool and get rid of everything. Jen said, would you remove the baby hairs or actually take the time to go over them? That's up to you. If you know that just a little bit of Photoshop work to remove the baby hairs, like these little flyaways here at the top, if you know that that would make the colorizing process easier and faster for you, you could do that. Some people don't want to. So anyways, we've removed all of the color using the mask because I'm going to go in and I'm going to add it back in only where I want it, right? So this is a good time for us to revisit one of the skills we learned in a previous class. I'm going to select my background layer here. And I'm going to go in and use my quick selection tool to select the background. And holding down the option key will let you kind of remove or add in sections of the background. So here we go. I'm going to just add in that. Grab this right here. Oh, but not her arm. Don't want to do that. Okay, so here we go. So that's, a rough selection of that. We're going to go back to that hue and saturation layer. And now that I have selected it, I can go back to my paint bucket tool and I can just add it back in that area. And now that I've done that, I can see that it colorizes that background to be a really rich, vibrant green. And that isn't super realistic. So I would go in and I would probably edit that by double clicking this. And I would bring maybe the saturation down even a little bit more. So there we go. All right. So that's where we are right now. Probably maybe 10 or so minutes ago, you should have saved your work. So shame on me for waiting so long to save my work. So save, right? We're going to save our work, because the worst thing ever is when you are working so hard in a document and you don't save your work, and then, I don't know, your computer crashes and you lose everything. So don't do that. All right. So we're going to go back in and name this background. Actually, we don't want to name it background because we have a background layer. So let's call this layer scenery. Confusing. So at this point, I just want to take a second to point out how this process has already added 5 layers on top of your background layer. So as you go and we get into colorizing these little details on her dress, her book, some of the details in her scarf, things like that, it can be a ton of layers and it can be really confusing. And although the mask does kind of show an outline of the area that you have colorized, it can be really confusing if you don't name them. So that's why I'm going through and naming every layer as I go. So let's do her scarf now, just because I think that it would look really pretty against the green background, the green scenery. I'm going to make her scarf a light pink. Let's go ahead and something just really subtle. Okay, that seems pretty. So again, I want to remove all the color from it because I just want to add in the color where I want it. So use the paint bucket tool here again. Now I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool. White adds color back in, and I can just go in. And this is another area, has a lot of hard edges. You might be able to use your quick selection tool to select some areas of the scarf. Now it's not going to be perfect, but you might get a pretty good selection, right? At least it can help you maybe go a little quicker in some areas, like right here near her dress. We probably want to do that by hand. But this is one way to make it go quicker, right? All right, so now that we've done that, we're going to go and click back on our hue and saturation, that layer mask. I'm going to use our paintbrush tool in the color white, and it will add that pink back in. You can, at this point, since we've made a selection, you can just add it back in. You don't need to be so precise. That's the nice thing about selecting an area. So now we're going to deselect the area and we're going to go in and perfect it. Okay, good. We have a hard brush. Okay. This is actually her collar here. This little dark right here. So I'm going to get rid of that. We'll want the scarf. This is her dress. So just really rough here, as you can see. And the cool thing about learning how to do something like this is some of these skills and some of the finer details that you are going to be focusing on when you do a project like this is going to be important, because you can kind of apply those same skills that you now have to other things, such as if you want to retouch a photo. You know, if you have a photo of yourself that you just like want to go in and add a little color to your cheeks, or you want to, you know, do something like that where, you know, you can go in and make adjustments using some of these skills that you have. I would have to say you probably don't need it. You're probably perfect as is, but I mean, hey, I've been there. I've gone in and photoshopped photos before. So really important if you are a photographer and you're doing an event in which something like that might be more important, you know, like a wedding, for example, or, you know, some kind of professional headshot, senior pictures. Sometimes skills like this can be really important. And this is also, if you've ever seen the senior picture where like a girl is holding a rose and the whole photo is in black and white except for the rose is colored, this is how you do it. So if anyone's ever wondered about that. Okay. So not perfect, but there we go. Her scarf is pink. I think that adds a lot, you know. I mean, if you look at the photo just cropped like this, it almost looks like it could be a real photo, maybe. Who knows? Maybe not. But you know, I think that that's certainly an improvement from where we were, the black and white. The more details you add, the more it's going to look realistic. So here we're just going to call this scarf. Let's go in and add some color back into her dress. All right, we're going to do what we did before. I actually kind of want it to be blue. So I'm going to go in and add color to these flowers. So pick a nice blue. Same process as before. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all the color because we want to go in and add color ourselves. So I'm going to use a very hard brush, really small, and I'm going to go ahead and add in color here. And the nice thing about something like this is you can kind of just literally color it in. You don't need to be super precise about it because the edges aren't really sharp. So, and of course, you know, you probably would want to go in and do this very meticulously if this were a real project, which it is. And I encourage all of you to spend hours doing this on your own time to practice the skill. But for right now, just for tutorial purposes. Okay. And just make my brush a little bigger. I'm going to go over to this side. We have this flower here. Great. Okay. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I did get this photograph as a free download from unsplash.com. The photographer is Alexander Andrews. So I added in some blue to her dress there. I think that that little detail makes a difference if we're looking at it just from this crop, right? So like her bust from here up, that I think makes a lot of difference. So we'll go ahead and title those flowers. So now we're up to 7 layers on top of our background layer. And we are not even done. So at some point you'll get to the point where this will actually have a scroll here where you can go up and down and see all your layers. You know, you can spend a lot of time. It's 7:09. Does anyone have any questions, or should I just keep going and show you guys you know, more for the next 5 or so minutes. I'll just keep going. And then if you guys have questions, you'll type them. So I'm going to go in and add color to this piping on her dress. I want that to be a really vibrant blue. So I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to add it blue, and I'm going to increase the saturation a lot. I'm also going to increase the darkness a lot. Okay, same sort of process. I'm going to go in with my brush, really hard edge, perfect. And the nice thing about this is you should be able to kind of just like make the brush really close size and just go all the way down. Smaller. Alrighty. Whoops, that wasn't good. Okay, now this side. And I'm going so quickly because I'm holding the shift key down. And that's making, when I click in one area and then I click in the other area, if you're holding shift down, it will draw a straight line. See that? Now this is a really vibrant blue. So when we zoom out, we're gonna have to take a look at it and see if it actually looks realistic. And if not, compared to the other colors that we've added in, we might want to adjust it a little bit. So let's take a look. Actually, I think it looks pretty good, right? And that blue piping looks like it is also on the edge of her sleeve. So we would just maybe go ahead and add that in here. And it's just like really small details like this that make such a difference and make something look more complete. And it's such a small amount of effort and time. Okay, next arm. You know what? This is a really soft edge. So I'm going to reduce the hardness of my brush here. Okay, so let's take a look. So that blue contrasting against her skin is it's adding a lot. And oh, I'm noticing that on my skin layer, something happened here, or maybe I just didn't catch that earlier, her forearm. We want to add some skin tone back in right here. What's wrong with this? There. Nope. Oh, you know what it is? I see, I see. It is actually, and so this is why naming things is so helpful. It's actually this layer. We need to remove some of this green from the background from her arms. Problem solving. I was like, why does that look so crazy? All right. So now let's see how that looks. Okay, so yeah, we're starting to get somewhere. You'll notice other things, right? Like on the scarf layer, there's a little bit of scarf right here by her face. You definitely want to add some of the color back into that. So I'm going to use a really small brush. I'm going to just go in and add in the scarf color. Really, really fine area, fine detail right there. Okay. So that is the tutorial for today. Obviously, we didn't get to everything. I would go in and I would do all the details in her dress. I would do her book. I would even maybe add some color into the fabric of her dress. But for now, you guys get the idea. That's what I have for today. I do see one question. So when you select the layer, the color is automatic, correct? I'm not sure what you mean. So the color has been applied in each of these layers using the adjustment layer. So like if I were to double click on the layer thumbnail for lips and cheeks, for example, you'll see that when it pulls up, the hue is red. Yes, meaning it remembers the color you have chosen originally. So each layer, each adjustment layer is going to be specific. And when you double click it, it will pull up those same settings from that layer. And so that's one of the reasons why it's important for you to name the layers. Let's say I were, which by the way, I should probably, what is this layer? See, that's why it's good to name them. So this is dress details. If I were to go in and add a new adjustment layer using hue and saturation, these are the default settings. You have to go in and hit colorize, and then you have to select like the color and all that stuff. And basically start from scratch. So it doesn't remember the color that it doesn't apply the settings from the last time you did it. Every time you apply an adjustment layer, that's unique to the settings for that new layer. So it'll, when you first enter into the hue and saturation flyout menu, it will be just like generic default settings. You want to delete that layer because you don't need that. So anyways, Jen, I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope it did. Does anyone else have any questions? And I can go ahead and I can put this Photoshop file up on the Dropbox. That way, if you guys want to open up my Photoshop file, you can go ahead and take a look at each of my layers, how I've done it. And you can even, save it and try to dissect it or add to it if you want to use this specific file to practice with. Maybe you could complete the picture. And so since we are done, I do want to go back and let's take a look and see what the original photo looked like. And like I said, I like doing it without knowing what the original looked like because I think your imagination it's kind of fun to just use your imagination, but let's go take a look. So yeah, pretty different, right? Her scarf is like a cream color, and there are other colors and shades and tones in the background, but other than that, you can see a lot of similarities between the two. So she's blonde, not brunette. I like her as a brunette though, right? She could dye her hair. Anyways, so that's really all I got for today. I look forward to seeing what you guys have created if you guys work off of a picture that you already have. Sam, I don't know if you or anyone else from the library has anything for today, but that's pretty much it.